just looking forward to playing Arizona, home game, day game. Excited about playing against those guys and competing against a good football team. They've gotten better every week, and I think that's been probably the best thing you can say about their team is that they've improved through the course of the season, gotten better and better and better, and they've got a good football team and really playing good on offense right now and on defense and playing well on special teams. And so it's a good team, and they're a tough football team. They play hard, well coached. Don't make a lot of mistakes, and so it'll be a tough game for us. It'll be a challenging game for us, but one that we're excited to play.
Can you talk about Kadeem, Carey, and you just come off of Bishop Sankey, and now you've got another one.
Yeah. Kadeem, it's interesting. I know a lot of these players, particularly some of these offensive players, are guys that we recruited when I was there. I saw Kadeem play a lot of high school football. And he's a physical, tough, hard-nosed, talented kid who has, been battle-tested. He's played for, 3 years. He's been a 3-year starter, been very productive. Finishes runs well. But as I said, just kind of, probably the best back in the league. I think just, probably the most versatile, and I like what the way he plays the game.
If I can follow up on that. What problems does it present when they've got a quarterback who did what he did last week against a team that looked like they were trying to gang up defensively against Carey and paid the price for that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's anytime that your quarterback is involved in the run game, it always creates a numerical advantage for the offense. And so that's why, everybody's gone to these quarterback run games, because it's hard to defend. And they throw the ball well enough where if you stack the box, and they're going to be able to throw the ball. And Denker last week, really ran the football well. Colorado, I think tried to take Carey away and dare the quarterback to keep the ball some of the read plays, and he did, and kept it effectively and really ran well. He's improved. Balls coming out more on time and more accurately now than it was at any time, during the year. So the quarterback's gotten better, and and when you have a great run game like they do, then it takes a lot of heat off of you.
How do you cope with that?
Well, it's tough. I mean, it's the same deal. You kind of have to pick your poison a little bit. If you're gonna stack the box, and it makes you a little bit more susceptible to the throwing game. So you've got to try to disguise your looks a little bit and have a little bit of a mixed bag. Don't give them any easy reads, and try to confuse them a little bit and force them to make some bad decisions.
Is there any added significance to this game for you, knowing that you were at Arizona for 3 years?
I mean,
are there any coaches in the program left still around that you were there?
No, not really. In our business, you've either worked with almost everybody or come across guys through the years. I mean, there is, from the standpoint, there's some players, that are still there, and guys that, I got to know pretty well during the recruiting process, or guys that were there. Jake Fisher, I think, has been there for like 15 years, their linebacker. I mean, he was playing when I was there, and he's playing significantly this year, and he's a really good player and kind of a heart and soul of their team. And, I mean, there's just a lot of experienced dudes, playing for them. I mean, their offensive linemen were guys that have been in the program for a long time and have played a lot. And same thing with Carey, and they're same thing with some of the defensive players, particularly on the back end. I mean, they've got a lot of experience on the back end. A lot of those kids were kids that, as I said, that we were recruiting when I was there, or were already in the program, that are 3 or 4 year starters. And so they've been very productive and been good players for them. Been a part of some good football teams.
You only had 3 penalties on Saturday, which is a season low.
Yeah.
Is that at least some sort of reason for hope?
Yeah, no, that was good. I mean, and really, I mean, one of the penalties was, Michael Lowe hitting a guy that was running down the sideline still. And so it was a late hit, on Sankey, and he was running down the sideline, and how's he supposed to know if they called him out of bounds, and the kid keeps running and he hits him. So really, probably should have just had 2 penalties, and it was an improvement. We had a false start, early in the ball game, which we've had too many of those this year. But yeah, I mean, we didn't turn the ball over other than the fake field goal, and so that was an improvement. I mean, we're making some strides in some ways and improving in some ways, and clearly reducing penalties is a focus of ours. I think the interesting thing about penalties that I find pretty fascinating is that you have to, when you look at penalties, you have to look at how many yards the team that you're playing against is penalized as well. I mean, that's, in my view, the way teams ought to be judged on how many penalties, is this team, or how often is this team penalized? Does that make sense? In other words, if we're a team that gets 10 penalties a game and our opponents get 12 penalties a game, then there's something going on within the game that makes that the case. And I think in our league, this is a highly penalized league. Like if you look at the teams that lead the nation in penalties, many of them are in the Pac-12. I think that's, you can attribute that to several factors and draw some conclusions on your own about why that's the case. But some of it's tempo, some of it's style of play, some of it's officiating. I mean, there's a lot of different conclusions you can draw. I think that's the number that matters is what's the difference in the penalty yards per game between two teams. Because, I mean, you can watch an SEC game and same deal, a game, maybe 60 plays. Each team may run 60 plays, where, the game Saturday we ran, 180 plays. And so, I mean, 60 more plays in that game maybe than a typical SEC game. And as a result, I mean, you have more plays, you're going to have more penalties.
So can you talk about Darren Irvin and sort of where was he on your radar in the spring? It looked to those of us on the outside that you had Lasco and Bigelow, and then you had Calfani coming in.
Sure.
It seemed like almost an afterthought at that point.
Yeah, Darren. Darren's been one of those guys. He's just never been completely healthy. He's had, he had a hamstring. He's had some, he had a groin, had some different things that have held him back a little bit, and so, we always thought Darren had a chance to be a pretty good player. He was kind of injured most of the spring, and it wasn't anything significant. It was just nagging things here and there. And so he showed some signs of doing some things, and then kind of the same thing going into fall camp. There were some things about him that we liked, the same things we like now. It's just we didn't get to see it consistently. And here over the last couple of weeks, I mean, he stayed healthy. And I think he's had a bigger role in special teams as a result of that. It was kind of the same thing on special teams. He wasn't doing much just because, we hadn't seen him do much. He was just, he'd get healthy for a couple of days and then have a little bit of a hamstring, get healthy for a couple more days, have a groin, get healthy for a couple more days, have something else. And so he's kind of been battling that, really all the way going back to last spring.
And you said he's doing the same things that you like now that you thought he could do. What are those things particularly?
Yeah, just finish runs. I think he finishes runs probably better than any back we have. He's got good vision. He has a good sense of how to set blocks up. He's got some patience as a runner, which I think is important. One of the big things that you want to see runners do is Darren always keeps his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. And that allows him to to have good vision and to make cuts and see what's going on and set things up. And so that's his strength as a runner. I mean, he's not going to wow anybody by having great track times or being incredibly fast. But but like I said, he's kind of an efficient between the tackles runner that finishes blocks pretty well. I mean, finishes runs pretty well and reads blocks pretty well. And like I said, he's kind of a meat and potatoes guy, not real flashy.
Can you envision the rest of the way here, sort of using him and Calfani as sort of a punch counter punch?
Yeah,
because of different style. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's kind of our intent. I think as we move forward, and then we'll see what Lasco can do as he gets healthy, and get him in the mix as well. But yeah, that's where we're headed right now with Irvin and Calfani, and they're two different running styles, definitely.
Yeah, Coach, the defensive struggles have been pretty well documented. Statistically, you're close to last or dead last in just about every major category. Do you feel like this is one of the worst defenses in the country, or maybe is there something misleading there? And is there any thought to simplifying things so guys can act instinctually as opposed to?
Yeah, I mean
thinking?
it's the same thing. I mean we're still. I mean, again, I mean you hate to go back to this, but it's. I mean, the thing about simplifying things is when you simplify a defense, then basically the offense can get you into matchups. Okay, and so what they can do then at that point is if you're going to line up with two safeties all the time, they can say, okay, we're going to put our fastest inside receiver on your safety and see if he can cover us. And so that's the thing that people don't do anymore is that, they don't do that. I mean, we don't play anybody in our league defensively that lines up the same way all the time because college football now is a matchup game, and so when you can predict exactly where their defensive players are going to be, you can create matchups that are going to be in the offense's favor. And so that sounds like an easy solution, but it's not really a great solution. The issue we've got, I mean, again, and you don't want to harp on it, but we've got. We have 2 years where we had 2009, 2010 recruiting classes, 40 kids. We have one starter. Let that sink in for a second. We signed 40 kids, and one of them is starting. So that's why we're playing with a lot of young guys. You know what I mean? And that's just the way it is. And like I said, I wish I had a better answer for you. But, the thing you have to do is you've got to simplify it enough, but you have to be creative enough too to be able to not be too predictable and not let people just line up and line up and know where you're going to be and create those matchups.
What's Cochran's status? And when he comes back, how does that impact the thing at guard with Freddie and sort of a little bit of a logjam there?
Yeah, I think his status is, he did a little bit yesterday. There were some times when he was a little uncomfortable. And we're going to just get him back in the mix and kind of see what he can do, and there's a potential, we might look at him a little bit at tackle as well and just see see how he fits out there and how comfortable he is doing that. I mean, I think it fits his skill set a little bit. I mean, he's not real tall, but he's pretty athletic and he can play in some space. And so I think that that's kind of the option, one of the options. So we'll see as he progresses back. How all those moving parts kind of fit. When do you expect him to be in the game again? Potentially Saturday. Potentially, he did a little more yesterday than we thought he would do. And we'll kind of continue to eyeball him and see how he progresses this week.
Is Nick Forbes pretty much done now for the
year?
I
think so. Yeah.
Is that a thing that can be better a year from now, or is the back thing something that worries you that you may never have him again?
That's a good question. We'd like to think that he can come back, from it. I think back injuries they affect everybody differently. It's hard to make a lot of assumptions based on those type of injuries. Some guys, play through them. Other guys, it really affects them. There's different pain thresholds, and then, and there's a lot of, there's kind of a lot of unknown there. And so I would like to think that we could get him back. I think, we've talked about having surgery, and I think that, I don't think there's anybody right now that's comfortable doctor-wise, with surgery. They don't think they feel like it's necessary. But, we're kind of at an impasse because he's not well enough to play. But at the same time, I don't know that he's hurt enough to have a surgery.
Coach, Arizona's defense last year was statistically near the bottom in the country. This year, they're a lot better. The numbers are better. But how much better is their defense that you see? And
they're better. I mean, they're definitely they're better. I mean, it's the same thing. They made a wholesale change, from the style of play they played before to a different style of play, last year. And so, anytime you're making that kind of a change from they went from a 4-3 defense in the past to a 3-3 stack defense, and it's a wholesale change, and so that's going to take some time. And their players went through the growing pains last year that happens sometimes as you change your philosophy. Their change in offense wasn't that big of a deal because it was a pretty similar style of offense that they were running prior. And they had Matt Scott, a quarterback that had a lot of experience in that type of offense last season. And so I think the transition offensively was much easier than the transition defensively last year. And so, they're playing with mostly the same guys, defensively. They're just more comfortable. They know how to play the defense now. They've gotten reps. They've developed the skills that they need to be successful. And those guys have all gained experience last year, and they're better as a result this year. And so, that's what happens in football. I mean, if you're not very good one year, then and you're playing with young guys, which they were last year. All their guys are pretty much back. They got a lot better.
And what sort of things do they do well? Do they pressure the quarterback well?
Yeah, they do a good job taking away the run game against most teams. They're going to try to outnumber you in the box and make you throw the ball, and again, kind of play into the strength of their defense, which is their secondary. They're aggressive on the back end, very much so. They challenge routes. They don't want to give you a lot of easy throws, and so and again, they can do that because of their personnel. They've got a lot of speed on the back end, a lot of experience, and as a result, they play with a lot of confidence. We talked about going back to earlier in the year. We talked about Oregon and Ohio State defensively and how aggressive their defensive backs were breaking on routes. These guys are similar to that because they are, because they played a lot. They're juniors and seniors, and most of them have been 2- and 3-year starters. And so the guys have a lot of experience, have seen a lot of different looks, and as a result, I think they're playing with more confidence and playing much faster.
Is potentially Darren Irvin able to help you in the red zone offense? And if he's able to help you with the shorter yardage stuff, does that impact what you do with Richard Rodgers? Yeah,
it does. I think that I think getting Darren back full speed, I don't know that you'll see Richard back at the running back spot anymore. I think we feel like Darren, is more natural doing that. And so we feel pretty comfortable with him in that point. And Richard's a good blocker in our big sets, and obviously a good red zone receiver. And so that's what we'd like to do is leave him, to be a receiving threat or a blocking threat, and let the runner run and the receiver catch or block.
There's obviously a lot of moving parts in the red zone that impact your success, but is having a runner who can run straight ahead and hard
that
like
helps.
him.
No, it helps.
Should he help remedy that situation?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. And we, we blocked a little better in our short yardage situations the other night. I was pleased, pleased with the way we came off the ball, particularly the left side of our offensive line. I thought really came off the ball well in some short yardage situations last week. So, that was encouraging. And I liked the way Darren finished the runs and the way he got behind his pads and ran with some authority.
Can you talk a little bit about the new blitz packages you guys were putting in on defense? Looked like added defensive back, added linebacker, no defensive tackles. Do you think those worked, or was that something that Andy came up with, or that you had some input on?
Yeah, no, it's something that kind of the same thing. I mean, it's a package that we spent a lot of time in the spring on, and Andy's had for a while. What kind of affected us was losing so many defensive backs to injuries, and so it kept us from. What happens is you've got to have enough healthy bodies to cover everybody. And so if you're playing against a team that's going to play a 3 or 4 wide set, you've got to have some guys that you feel can cover, whether it's man free or cover zero situations. And so, what we did is took some DBs off the field, put some guys we felt like could create a little bit more of a pass rush. Johnny Reagan, Chad Whitener, kind of kids or young kids. Put those guys in the game, and and then covered. And I thought we got off the field a bunch on third down. We gave up a touchdown. Joel Willis got beat on a vertical route and a touchdown in that third down package and man free. And it's kind of pick your poison. It's if you want to sit back there and let them in and try to drop 8, you can do that. I mean, it's the same old thing in football. I mean, there's different ways to go about it. In third and long, you can either try to pressure the quarterback, in which case, you're more susceptible to giving up a big play, but you also could pressure him and create some early throws, which we did quite a bit. And then if you can't get pressure, then you're going to have potential of giving up a big play, which we did as well. So, we tried to do a little bit of both, more of the blitz stuff than we've done in the past, and I think that was because we felt like we had more healthy DBs than we've had in the past.
Can you talk about you and Tony, your experience playing against the 3-3-5 scheme, and if there's one base defense that matches up well against a spread scheme like yourselves, is the 3-3-5 it with 5 defensive backs?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think certainly that was kind of the in vogue thing, 6-8 years ago. A lot of teams were going to the 3-3 versus a lot of spread stuff, and it makes a lot of sense because the makeup of the defense is such that, as you said, you get more speed on the field because you have, 5 DB type bodies. The thing you give up is versus some teams that are going to be, downhill run teams. You're playing, basically defensive end with outside linebacker type guys. And so, you give up some size, when you're playing against a tight end or you're playing against a 2 tight end set. And, I think that defense is kind of made, for spread teams and kind of like we talked about a second ago. I mean, anytime you try to gain something from a scheme standpoint, you always give a little bit of something up. And so I think it's a good scheme, especially against, primarily 4 wide receiver teams. And, I think they do a good job coaching it.
It's a lot of coaches have some pretty unique blitz packages out of it. How much experience do you and Tony have playing against the 3-3-5?
Yeah, we've seen it. I mean, it's kind of like I said, it's kind of been the in vogue thing. I played against it when I was at Arizona. We played New Mexico, and Rocky Long was at New Mexico, and saw that was kind of what he was doing then. And we saw some of it even going all the way back to Kentucky in the late '90s when Joe Lee Dunn was a D coordinator at Mississippi State. Saw some of that as well. The 3-3-5 stuff. So we faced it through the years. Certainly saw it a lot at times when I was at Texas Tech. It was kind of people were going to that. TCU was running basically a 4-2-5, so it was a little bit more of an even front defense with 5 DBs, but kind of a lot of the same blitzes. Maybe not as diverse maybe as the 3-3-5 blitz game. But the odd blitzes are always a little bit different than the even blitzes. Just with the angles the guys are coming from and what they can do to create the angles is a little bit different. But we've seen it through the years.
Yeah, Coach, we had last week, Zach and Jared were essentially listed as kind of either or, for lack of a better word. There was an open competition. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you saw that now has you thinking Jared is the long-term guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing we saw, to make the decision, through 2-a-days. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, when what you have to do for quarterbacks, I mean, some guys are going to have bad games, some guys are going to have good games, and you got to look at a body of work. And I think that's how you have to make decisions based on those guys because, I just think that's the best way to do it. And so I think that when you go back and you look at the body of work, whether it's practice, games, whatever, then, we just felt like, Jared has the best body of work. And, when you look at the whole thing and you say, do you want to, I think when you make a decision, sometimes the best thing you can do is try to develop who you make the decision on. And so, we felt like we wanted to give Zach a chance and see how he responded and see how Jared responded to a little bit of competition and maybe the pressure that goes along with that. And, thought he responded well. And so, that's kind of where we are.